Hi, I'm Jeremy Brecker with the Labor Network for Sustainability, and in this installment of Strike, Commentaries on Solidarity and Survival, we will be talking about how to protect workers while protecting the climate. To protect against catastrophic global warming, the United States is preparing to rapidly reduce the burning of fossil fuels, coal, oil, and natural gas. As we transition to a climate-safe economy, many people ask, what about the workers who will lose their jobs in fossil fuel and other polluting industries? Much of the resistance to climate protection lies in a deep fear that whatever promises may be made, workers who lose their jobs will just be thrown on the economic scrap heap. Making sure that workers and communities are not left behind in the process is a crucial part of securing a climate-safe future. Yet the United States has rarely done a good job of managing major shifts in regional and national economies. Protecting workers and communities from the unintended side effects of such changes is often referred to as a just transition. Just transition efforts are already underway at the local, state, and national levels. For example, the Colorado Just Transition Law created a Just Transition Office in the Department of Labor and Employment. Once the program is funded, it will administer benefits to transitioning coal workers to enable them to support themselves and their families and to access and complete education and training, resulting in being hired for high-quality jobs. And it will make grants to eligible entities and coal transition communities that seek to create a more diversified, equitable, and vibrant economic future for those communities. In the first days of his administration, President Joe Biden issued an executive order which included the establishment of an interagency working group to coordinate the identification and delivery of federal resources to revitalize the economies of coal, oil, and gas and power plant communities, develop strategies to implement the policy set forth in the order, and for economic and social recovery, and assess opportunities to ensure benefits and protections for coal and power plant workers. There is strong support for such an effort. For example, the day before Biden's executive order, 13 groups from historic coal mining areas like West Virginia, Kentucky, and the Navajo Nation in Arizona called for immediate creation of a White House Office of Economic Transition. Fortunately, there are ways to provide alternative jobs, livelihoods, and community resources when fossil fuel burning is reduced. But to realize a just transition, the federal government will have to play a lead role in terms both of resources and policy. President Biden's proposed American Jobs Plan, based on his Build Back Better agenda, recognizes that confronting the climate crisis must be done by creating good-paying union jobs in a broad spectrum of industries. But it does not yet include an adequate plan to protect the workers it may adversely affect. It will take action by Congress, as well as executive action by the Biden administration, to make a just transition a reality. It will require ways to protect individual workers, protect communities, create jobs, and pay for a just transition. Protecting workers and communities is an integral part of protecting the climate that must be built into climate policy from the start. Climate policy must provide a just transition for workers who lose their jobs in fossil fuel-related industries. Such a program is often compared to the GI Bill of Rights that provided education and training, loan guarantees for homes, farms, and businesses, and unemployment pay for veterans returning from war. This program was first established in 1944 for returning veterans of World War II, and has been revamped repeatedly since. It was critical for the economic boom that followed World War II, and for the ability of returning veterans to integrate back into American society. A similar program is needed today for fossil fuel workers who are displaced from their jobs through no fault of their own. Workers harmed by climate protection policies should receive full wages and benefits for at least 4 years, up to 4 years of education or training, including tuition and living expenses, and decent pensions with health care for those ready to retire. The opportunity for individuals to access higher education and advanced training will also mesh with the need to develop new labor force capabilities for the emerging green economy. A crucial element of a just transition is wage replacement, also known as wage insurance or wage differential benefit. A possible model is the Federal Trade Adjustment Assistance Program, TAA, which provides wage insurance for workers whose income is reduced because of the impacts of trade policy. TAA wage insurance has limitations, however. It applies only to workers 50 years old and older. The federal government covers no more than 50% of a worker's reduction in wages, and this support is capped at $6,000 per year for 2 years. 2 recent state plans point the way towards improving this approach. The Washington State Initiative 1631, narrowly defeated in 2018, would have established a workers' support program for bargaining unit and non-supervisory fossil fuel workers who are affected by the transition away from fossil fuels to a clean energy economy. It would have provided full wage replacement for every worker within 5 years of retirement, wage replacement for every worker for each year of service up to 5 years, and wage insurance for up to 5 years for workers re-employed who have more than 5 years of service. The Colorado Just Transition Law, passed in 2019, provides a wage differential benefit defined as supplemental income covering all or part of the difference between an individual's previous employment in a coal mine, coal-fired electrical power generating plant, or the manufacturing and transportation supply chains of either, and new employment or supplemental income during job retraining. Currently, a bipartisan bill to allocate $15 million in seed money is advancing through the Colorado General Assembly. Fully funding the benefit will require additional resources from federal or other sources. Climate policy also needs to ensure the economic transformation of communities and regions that are dependent on fossil fuel production and use. Community just transition plans can learn from the highly successful process that helped local communities adjust to the disruption and job shifting that resulted from the closing of military bases under the Base Realignment and Closing Commission, known as BRAC, a program that ran from 1988 to 2005 and that the Pentagon is hoping to revive. Communities near closing military bases were provided a wide range of federal assistance, including planning and economic adjustment assistance, environmental cleanup, community development block grants, and community service grants. Workers dislocated by base closings also received extensive support. The Department of Defense itself provided advanced notification of a reduction in force, pre-separation counseling, a hiring preference system with federal agencies to reemploy qualified displaced defense employees, and financial incentives to encourage early retirement of those eligible. Workers affected by base closings were also eligible for help under national emergency grants, rapid response programs, comprehensive assessments and development of individual employment plans, and job training. Communities and individuals adversely affected by climate protection policies could be similarly targeted for assistance from such existing programs as the Department of Labor's Rapid Response Services and the National Emergency Grants of the Department of Labor's Employment and Training Administration. as well as funding for economic development and industrial efficiency and modernization from the Departments of Energy and Commerce. There has been at least one effort to apply such an approach. Starting in 1992, the Department of Energy eliminated 47,000 contractor personnel at 13 major sites as a result of downsizing the nation's nuclear weapons complex. The Department of Energy conducted a worker and community transition program that provided grants and other assistance for communities affected by the shutdown of nuclear facilities. The goal was to assist displaced workers and provide economic recovery and diversification assistance to the affected communities. The program was budgeted for $200 million in 1994, declining to $25 million in 2001. A nuclear test site in Nevada, for example, was repurposed to demonstrate concentrated solar power technologies. The Obama administration's Power Plus plan for Appalachia illustrates an approach to regional just transition that was greeted enthusiastically by Appalachian social justice groups, including the Mountain Association for Community Economic Development and Kentuckians for the Commonwealth. While not nearly sufficient in terms of the scale of investment, this proposal for the first time put a just transition for workers in fossil fuel-related industries on the national political agenda. The Power Plus plan included $1 billion over 5 years to restore lands and waters degraded by decades-old mining and to support related sustainable development projects. $56 million to invest in job training for laid-off miners and to support economic development efforts in Central Appalachian mining communities. This figure includes an additional $20 million in job training for miners and power plant workers, an increase of $25 million in the Appalachian Regional Commission's annual budget to be directed at communities most impacted by coal economic transition. $6 million more to the Department of Commerce for place-based regional innovation efforts, including grants to economically distressed communities, and $5 million more for the EPA's Brownfields program to help communities deal with the closure of coal-fired power plants, and $3.9 billion over 10 years to shore up health and retirement benefits for many retired miners. Congress partially funded the Power Plus plan, and the Appalachian Regional Commission has provided $150 million to programs under the plan. It has been touted by the Biden administration as a possible model for addressing the economic needs of Appalachia. The Colorado Just Transition Law shows how such an approach might be implemented at a state level. It provides grants to eligible entities in coal transition communities that seek to create a more diversified, equitable, and vibrant economic future for those communities. Coal transition community is defined as a municipality, county, or region that has been affected or will be affected by the loss of 50 or more jobs from a coal mine, coal-fueled electrical power generating plant, or the manufacturing or transportation supply chains of either. The plan will require federal funding for implementation. A central part of any just transition program is creating new jobs. While job creation is not just an issue for workers displaced by climate policy, but for the entire economy, we focus here on programs specifically designed to help workers and communities affected by the transition to climate-safe energy. Generally, jobs should be made available in the locations where workers are or want to be, using their existing skills and providing comparable wages and conditions. Employers must retrain and find jobs for those affected, give them priority for new jobs, provide economic benefits that allow not only a decent livelihood, but a start on a new life, ensure decent retirement benefits for those who choose to retire, and invest in local communities to provide them a future beyond fossil fuels. All jobs programs should create good jobs that include a living wage, health care, employer neutrality to union organizing, project labor agreements, and other worker protections. All impacted workers and communities should be included in a deliberative process and have a voice in shaping transition plans. Alternative jobs can be provided not only in renewable energy, but also in other work the public needs. They should be provided not only where existing jobs are lost, but where potential fossil fuel jobs are not created because of climate protection policies. For example, the Labor Network for Sustainability study, the Keystone Pipeline debate, and alternative job creation strategy laid out how more jobs could be created by renewing water and other pipeline infrastructure than by building the Keystone XL pipeline for tar sands oil. Protecting threatened workers and communities dependent on fossil fuel jobs needs to start before devastating economic disruption begins. Public policy should establish community and worker protection funds to collect money in advance to replace taxes and fees paid by fossil fuel facilities and to invest in good jobs in affected communities. It should target investments in fossil fuel energy communities designed to create jobs before or at the pace that fossil fuel jobs are declining. The L&S study, Beyond a Band-Aid, a discussion paper on protecting workers and communities in the Great Energy Transition, by Arjun Makajani of the Institute for Energy and Environmental Research, proposes a fund designed to protect communities and workers directly affected by an energy transition proactively before the damage occurs. It would replace taxes or fees paid by fossil fuel plants and create good jobs in affected communities before the old ones are lost. The training would be for the jobs that are being created, not some hypothetical jobs that may or may not materialize. The plan includes a community and worker protection fund. The fund would collect money in advance to replace taxes and fees paid by fossil fuel facilities and to invest in good jobs in affected communities. The Community and Worker Protection Fund, in cooperation with other private and public sources, would make targeted investments in fossil fuel energy communities designed to create jobs before or at the pace that fossil fuel jobs are declining. Examples would include exporting renewable energy, HVAC conversion, decommissioning facilities, and economic diversification. Beyond a Band-Aid also lays out a variety of ways to pay for these proposals. They include levying a modest carbon fee or tax, eliminating fossil fuel subsidies and tax breaks, setting aside funds for decommissioning facilities, and leveraging other investments. Federal programs can support such local and regional programs. For example, a plan proposed by Governor Jay Inslee and Senator Elizabeth Warren would establish a dedicated restoration fund to create new skilled union jobs in environmental remediation and construction, cleaning up the sites polluted by fossil fuel companies throughout the country, and especially in low-income and disadvantaged communities. This program would hire local workers and would supplement and not replace existing resources like the Federal Abandoned Mine Land Fund. Jobs for reclamation and restoration would be required to pay prevailing wages and to allow workers the opportunity to organize. The potential scale of such a program is indicated by the need for oil well remediation. As of 2016, the EPA estimated that there were more than 3 million abandoned oil and gas wells across the U.S., of which 2 million are unplugged. Employers who close plants or mines should be required to take responsibility for the workers and communities who have produced their profits. They should negotiate a jobs agreement with unions representing affected workers, find jobs for affected workers who want them, ensure job retraining for those who need it to fill new jobs, provide decent pensions with health care for workers who are not provided other jobs and who do not opt for retraining, create jobs restoring the site, reutilize facilities to replace losses in the tax base, and fund job-creating community economic development. Colorado's recent Just Transition law creates a Just Transition office which requires that an electric utility proposing to retire a coal-fueled electric generating facility shall submit to the office a workforce transition plan at least 90 days before the retirement of the facility. Senator Bernie Sanders' Green New Deal proposal establishes priority job placement for any displaced worker. It also provides employers with tax credits to incentivize hiring transitioning employees in order to ensure that workers who are displaced by climate policy are able to find meaningful employment. It provides the Work Opportunity Tax Credit to employers who hire them. Making a Just Transition program for workers a central feature of executive action and congressional legislation on climate could make a difference between workers' support for effective climate protection and a never-ending battle over jobs versus the environment. It could unify climate and worker concerns around a program of protecting jobs by protecting the climate, and it could ultimately serve as the leading edge for a more universal program to provide workers and communities a safety net against the wider insecurities of our live-at-your-own-risk economy. To realize those goals, advocates of climate protection in Congress will have to agree that adequate provisions for just transition will be included in any climate legislation and won't be bargained away or left unfunded. To read this commentary, please visit laborforsustainability.org/strike.